All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another Azul video. Um, Today I am going to play some games. It's been a while since I've done a gameplay video, so yeah, just feeling like playing some games tonight. I do think that I'm going to try to have a particular focus, so that it's not just, random gameplay. So what I'm going to try to focus on is the macro strategy of each game. And what I mean by that is even as early as round one, you can start kind of identifying how the game is going to go from your end, or kind of what your path to victory is. And obviously things change as the game goes on and different tiles come out, but excuse me. Yeah, I think it can be helpful to kind of have an idea as to what you want to be doing in later rounds, to inform the round that you're currently in, and just generally guide your gameplay. And I think it's something that I haven't necessarily touched a lot on in other videos. So yeah, that's going to be the focus for today's video, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe it'll be too much talking about macro strategy and not enough about what's going on in the round, and I'll run out of time. But we're going to give it a shot. So let's jump into some arena games. Hopefully we can find them pretty quick. The downside of playing arena early in the season is that if you have your filter set to elite only, sometimes it can take a while to find a game. But we found one quickly. Oops. Okay, so yeah, I think kind of already we can start thinking about macro strategy. This is a really strong start for our opponent. This might be a rather tough game, especially against a good opponent. And they're going to be able to do a lot of damage on row 4 white. So the question is, how do we want to tackle this? If I just take the 1 and play it in row 3, and then I take 2, or then they take 2, I take 2, they take 2, that gives them rows 3 and 4. So I'm thinking about taking 2 white. Yeah, and I think I'll do this. So basically, from the macro strategy perspective, what I'm thinking is if I can exit this round with a lot of white, that will be harmful for my opponent. So for example, if my opponent were to have picked from the middle there, I would have been able to take a bunch of white. Of course, they don't pick from the middle, so yeah, but we're still gonna just pound white. And let's try to get 3 red out of this. Yeah, so could have been interesting for my opponent to take red there, just because that's what I'm going after for column 2. I don't think yellow is bad, but okay. Okay, so from the macro strategy perspective, basically what happened there was we identified that there was a lot of white and that our opponent was going to need white, and we took as much as possible. And you can see the result of that, which is that even with getting 2, because there were 12 white in round 1, there's only one in this round. And so, they're not going to be able to finish row 4. Okay, so what are we looking at here? 2 blue would be great for us. It's our only adjacent row 2, but we might run into some trouble. Obviously, we can finish row 5 red, and then we're looking at kind of hammering on row 4 black. I think I want to have the first player tile next round because white is still one of the most used tiles. So I'm going to take this and try to be in control of white tiles next round. Okay, so now that our opponent has taken this 2 red, we can create the row 2 blue. But it does create 3 black, which our opponent could play on row 3, which would be quite strong for them and detrimental to us. So I think I'll take 2 black first and make progress on my row 4. I really don't want to exit this round without any progress on row 4 because there are so many blacks. Okay, so now I think we can make the red play and finish row 5. Okay, so we'll grab our 2 blue. So this is interesting. I think I'm just going to take 1 black and force my opponent to pick between yellow and red for row 1. They don't really get to finish this row 3 yellow because they need to play on row 1. So I don't think this yellow is a bad play given the options they had, but they're not going to be able to finish it, or they will choose to finish it. Okay, so in terms of playing this red, it's just way far out. Ideally, I want to be playing blue next round. So we're going to throw this away. So we're down by 2. Not a lot of blue for our row 3 blue aspirations. Okay. So what are we looking at here? Obviously finishing this row 4. Pretty high priority. I don't really want to get forced on that. My opponent has a really nice spot for this black tile. So I'm just going to take this black. I'm going to take the one that puts a single red in the center, kind of assuming my opponent will take the 1 white. And now I can take this 1 red, leave my yellow options open. This is going to be like a flinching game for blue. Obviously, they could just take 1 blue. So like I don't want to take 2 yellow, for example, and just give them 2 blue for free. But I don't have great options. And it's a little dangerous for me to take a blue because then I have nowhere to play red. And I could end up with a bunch of negatives. But actually, I could just play row 2 red. So let's do this. Let's squeeze our opponent on on their row 2 blue, because there's no black. Okay, and now that they're going for row 3 red, they can't stop, or they can't pile those reds onto me. So I'm actually going to take 1 white here, as just a defensive play to prevent them from getting anything on row 2, because I have flexibility. Like I have this pile of 2 yellows and I have this pile of 3 yellows. Okay, so this is interesting. So I might end up giving up my row 2, but they're also giving it up. Okay, and so they don't force me to do that. This is interesting. Yeah, I think I let them have 3 red and just take my... And not playing any of these. So my opponent has now missed a row 1 in a previous round, and they've missed row 2 in this round. So one thing that I should be keeping in mind is that they won't be able to end the game in round 5. So I will have control over whether the game ends in round 5, which could be very important. Some things for me to be aware of are my opponent's chances to get full color yellow. Not so much anymore now that they didn't invest in row 4 yellow, because there's only 4 yellow left. So let's just grab these 2, I think, and eliminate that threat. And this yellow is important because it'll give this row 3 blue more points. Okay, so yeah, let's just go ahead and finish this blue. We're okay with blacks getting a little bunched because we have row 5 black open. Our opponent could try to set up, row 4 black, or just take these 3 black. It's this is actually one way they can end the game in round 5, would be to have taken these blacks. Okay, so let's take these for row 1. It's a bit of an interesting situation. There's only 3 blacks left, and we want 2 of them for row 2. There's 6 whites. So there is a world in which we can build this middle column. But our opponent's probably going to be going after whites for their second column, and they have first player tile. So the question is what to do here. I think taking the blacks is a little bit ambitious. Like, I don't think building this is gonna... I don't think building this column is really going to happen. So I'm willing to give my opponent this point with the extra negative and these extra 2 negatives from the yellow. And I'll just see kind of how this tile draw plays out this round. So I'm down by 3. But what can my opponent do here? So they can end the game with row 3 white. So that's back in play. And they're going to go for it. I think there's a couple of things I can do here. One is let's see. Neither of us really play blues. Okay, I think I want to get my row 2 black locked down. And I thought about putting these other yellows in the center so that they can't play row 1 yellow. But they have this row 4 yellow that's almost just as good. So, okay, so I'm going to take this black from the center. And the reason is if they take a white, basically I didn't want to group those 2 whites together so that they could just play 2 whites, because now they might have this thought, which is what's going to happen. Nope, I guess not. So basically they can't play on row 2 with black. So they have to try to play on row 2 with white. But if they take 1 white, then I'll take 1 white for row 1. Yeah, so they do this first. So they kind of have to choose between this yellow and this white. The scenario I was going to outline is if they take a white, I take a white, they take a white, and then I get row 3 yellow. But now I will get my row 1. And I think should be able to escape this with no negatives. I'm not sure who's going to win here, so I'm going to get 7 points plus 9 points. So I'm going to score 16. They're going to score 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 as well. We're both -1, so I'm going to get some extra points here. 1, 2, 3. This might be a draw that I'm going to win on the row tiebreaker. Yeah. So really close game. Obviously, the macro strategy discussion calmed down a bit after the first couple rounds. But yeah, hopefully some of that early discussion was useful. I think I probably did not play super optimally in this game. Maybe there were some options in some of the middle rounds where I could have taken a little more time, but yeah, we squeaked out a win here. So yeah, Star of Asia recently played in a tournament. Which is why they're saying they lost again to me. But yeah, good game. Super close. Star of Asia, you played very well. If you end up watching this, look forward to our next game. Okay, let's give it a minute. Yeah, I realized I didn't get to fully flesh out that round 5 scenario, but basically, like, if they had taken one white for row 2, the way the sequence would have played out is I would have gotten those yellows on my row 3, and still gotten my row 1 white. So they had to choose between getting their row 2 and giving me that row 3 yellow, or getting their row 1 yellow but not getting row 2. And in a sense, that was partly because of our macro strategy of hoarding whites earlier in the game. They were in a pinch for whites at the end there, but yeah, certainly a small domino effect, if anything. So this game I'll try to be a little bit tighter on the actual play analysis. Like I said, I think I probably left some good plays on the table in that one. So yeah, if you find something, feel free to throw it in the comments. And now we are experiencing what I was talking about at the beginning of the video, which is early in the season, there are fewer elite players. So if you have your preferences set to only play with your level, then it might take a while to find an elite game. So let's actually open this up to Platinum, and we'll cancel this one and start a new search. Okay, we get an elite player anyway. Okay, so this looks like a pretty strong draw for the center column. There's the 2 blue, lots of white and black. So I think it's pretty reasonable to start with that. And you might say, oh, well, if you take 2 blue, you give your opponent the 2 black with the first player tile. But I don't really mind that because there's 2 white sitting here. So like I'll be in a pretty strong position anyway. Very tempting to build column 2, and maybe it would have been the better column to build. Okay, so again, now that our opponent has committed themselves, we can start thinking about macro strategy. Obviously playing these whites is, a tile that they need, but the main thing to think about when your opponent's building the second column is how you're gonna deal with reds. Our opponent makes a pretty good move to bunch these blues together. We will certainly take those. Yeah, so here, there's kind of 2 options. Now, note that I basically have to take one of these 2 for my row 2. Like if I were to take black and put it on row 5 and then he takes red, then they can block row 2 from me. So the question is, what do I want to defend more? And I think for the sake of my board, obviously I want black. Maybe I'll make them make an interesting decision here. Let's just take the red. Kind of regretting not building column 2 myself. Okay. So here we'll just take the white, and we're going to force them to deal with these 2 yellows. Okay. Let's see what they do. Bummer. So yeah, I think this is a mistake. It's not that bad actually, because they finished row 4. So you've probably heard me say I don't like to have row 4 and 5 from different columns in round 1, but when you finish row 4, it's less impactful. So it's actually not so bad. So again, what does this mean for us from a macro strategy perspective? Obviously, we still want to be defending reds. It's awkward for us because it happens on row 3 right now. So what can we do here? I kind of like grouping up these blues because our opponent wants row 2 blue. So I'm actually going to try to make this group of 5 blue if possible, I think. And so you can see by taking away this row 2 blue option, things get a little awkward for our opponent because now they're looking at yellow, which maybe won't be an option. And they don't really want to play row 2 red because they would rather have row 4 red, but they have now abandoned that. So, okay, so red's on the table for them. And suddenly my row 2 options don't look good. So what do I do here? I think I just play black on row 2. So even though I'm not working towards black row 5, I'm contributing to what I need for black overall. And now again, I can leave my opponent with 2 yellows that are going to be somewhat weird to play. Like, yeah, I was going to say they don't really want to do this. And let's... Okay, I think we can play this white. So looking at my opponent's board, I'm not going to have much competition for white because they're blocked on row 3, and on row 4, they either want to be playing red. They basically want to be playing red on row 4, so they don't want to contribute to row 4 white. And for me, I want to be focusing yellows for my upper rows. So I've got places to play yellow, which is one of the most common remaining tiles. So I'm not too worried about like blocking myself. Okay, so our opponent playing super defensively in scooping up those whites. Oh, yeah, row 5. Shoot, that's just a miss on my part. um, I think I thought the row 5 was going to be blocked. Okay, so yeah, what are we going to do here? Let's play some minor white defense. We'll grab our row 2 yellow. We want to group these blues up so that we can get row 4 blue. Though taking this yellow is very strong. So our opponent left their row 1 to just this yellow. Which means that if I take it, they have to play these blues on row 1, and then we'll get our row 5 black. So we have a lot to be careful for. We're in a decent spot. I think we'll be ahead at the end of this round by quite a good margin. But our opponent has 2 columns going, and they kind of had a yellow color threat until they played that one red. That's wrong. Oh no, that's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 4 whites left. Okay, so no good options really for controlling the first player tile. One thing we could do is just take 2 red on row 5. There's 3 black left, so if we were to get this, we'd be okay. There's 6 red left, so if we don't finish it, we'd be okay. Tons of yellow, so our opponent can't play these yellows other than row 1, so I'll definitely be looking to dump yellows on them. So what do we do here? Okay, let's go for this row 5 red play. I don't love it, but like I don't have any easy building. Row 2 blue is not there. It's just not a comfortable situation. So we might end up giving up row 2 this round. And at this point, the thing I'm going to be looking for is opportunities to get these yellows onto my opponent's floor line. Worth noting, my opponent wants 3 black for this other column. Okay, so this opens up row 2 blue for us, which is great. And again, our opponent doesn't want to, like, I can group these blues safely because if our opponent plays row 3 blue, that's fine because then they block their ability to complete this column in round 5. So let's group those blues up by grabbing these yellows. No, okay, so they go for it, which is fine. So maybe they're realizing that it puts them in a sticky situation. Okay, so I'm just going to grab 1 white and force them to take this last white from me. So we're missing out on our row 2 this round. It was just not very easy to complete. Okay, so here, I think I'm actually not going to take the white because I want to dump these yellows on my opponent. So I'm instead going to take the red, and they're going to give me the white anyway, which is great. And then we're dumping these negatives. So missed out on row 2, but yeah, we were -8 for our opponent versus only -1 for ourselves. And we have a 16-point lead heading into this last round. And we don't have to be careful for anything, right? Because, like I said, our opponent playing this 2 blue here just blocked their ability to create this second column. So there's no like additional threats for us. So we can go ahead and end the game, and let's do it by grouping these 3 reds together, because our opponent wants this row 4 red. And I think before we do anything there, we can group up the 2 yellows that they need for row 1. Okay, and now we will let them have those reds. And if they do this, then we will take the reds on row 4. So this is +3. If I play them on row 3, I go +3, -3. So that's net 0. If I play them on row 4, I go +1, -1. So it's net 0 either way. And then they're left to take those whites. Okay, so that game, honestly, a little bit hard to talk about macro strategy, because our opponent was a little bit all over the place. So when you have an opponent that ends up building like all kinds of row 5s and row 4s, you know, often it's pretty scary because they are going to be creating these multiple threats. But what they're giving up on is point scoring. And so you saw, you know, I think in round 4, I was up by maybe more than 15 or something. So, you know, when your opponent's doing that, remember that you don't always have to like go nuts trying to defend those additional threats. Obviously, sometimes you do need to, but just make sure that you're scoring points well, because if you're not scoring points well and you don't have any additional threats, then their second column or their color bonus will end up being the difference. So, you know, if you have a 12-point lead, a 15-point lead, it's kind of like, who cares if they get a second column? So yeah, it's always, those games are tough mentally because they don't kind of follow a standard flow. You have to adapt to things that maybe you're not really used to seeing. Especially at the higher levels, like most people are focused on building one column and they're not all over the place like that. But you saw in that game, like, I got tripped up and thought, oh, they're not going to be able to play these whites somewhere, when row 5 white is exactly what they wanted. So when your opponent is creating multiple threats, sometimes it's hard to keep track of them all. Okay. Okay, so we're going to start with row 5 red and build the second column. And our opponent instantly challenges with row 4 white. So let's challenge that back. Yeah, so I think I'm happy to take the white here. The black's also an option. Okay, obviously we don't want to end up giving them row 4 yellow, but let's try to, I'm sorry, row 3 yellow. Ideally, we could get blues to prevent them from making progress on row 3 blue. So I'm going to make a kind of weird play and play row 1 yellow. And the idea here is if they take the 2 yellow, like row 2, these 2 yellow, then they'll group the blues and I'll get to play the blues. Okay, so now the question is, what do I value more? I could get 1 red and then either blue or yellow. Or I could take the blue, most likely they take the red, and then I have to throw away those yellows. So I think the smart play here is to take 1 red and just take whichever row 2 comes back to me. I liked the idea of taking the blues, but this actually gives us a good chance to talk macro strategy. So when your opponent has this type of situation entering round 2, the thing you should be thinking about is, can you give them a bunch of negatives because they have these open rows. And I think my opponent just made a mistake. Nope, that's that. So they opted for this working on their black row 5, but they neglected this 1 blue. And while row 5 black is important, row 5 is the row that you are most comfortable with leaving towards the end of the game, because ideally you want the rest of your rows built anyway for maximum vertical adjacency. Okay, so we're going to have to take 3 red for row 2, and let's do it such that we group these yellows together to make their row 2 kind of awkward. They can't really take row 2 black, because then we would prevent them from finishing row 5. This is an interesting spot, actually. So I need blacks, obviously, and so there's a part of me that wants to group up the 4 blacks so that I can play them on row 4 or make them take a bunch of negatives. But it might be detrimental because then I get no black, and there's 11 left, and I'm going to need 7 of them. So I don't think I want to do that. I think what's interesting is playing this black and grouping the whites up, because now my opponent has to choose between black and white. So I will take these white away. And you can see the difference between me and my opponent. I'm not too worried about the fact that I didn't finish row 5 red this round, because there's plenty of red tiles left. Like, it's not going to be a problem to do it in the future. Okay. So that was 5, yeah. So my opponent is like falling for what I would call the curse of large tile groups. Like this row 5 white is pretty unlikely to be anything for them in the future, and I don't have anywhere good to play whites, so they could have like grabbed it at another point anyway. So one thing I'm aware of is that my opponent can't play reds, so I may try to group up some reds. I do also need to get involved in blues though, because my opponent needs 1 for their row 3 and 2 for their row 2 now that black and white are gone. Sorry, white's not gone, but obviously they're going to play 1 for row 4. Okay, perfect. So again, we're gonna like see that we can take advantage of our opponents being blocked up. And you might look at like what I'm coming out of this round with, and it's pretty unideal relative to what was available, right? Like earlier in the round, it probably looked like I would end up with row 1 red, row 2 blue, maybe even row 3 blue. Sorry, give me a second. Okay, so there's 0 reds left. Is this right? Can this possibly be right? Yeah, 14 plus 6. Wow, okay. So these tile counts matter a lot right now. There's only 3 red left, so we want one of those and one of those. Ideally, we get this black, and there's 1 white left, so we want row 2 white, which shouldn't be a problem, but let's try to force our opponent into taking their 2 white, and see if we can get the first player tile with red along the way. Nope, so they instantly hate the black. Okay, so let's make this white extra expensive for them. And I'm happy to group up blues because I can play them on row 3. Okay, our opponent's going for building a second column. Can I take 2 yellow? Well, here's an interesting thing. We know there's only 1 white left. So they have the first player tile though. Okay, let's just make them pay for these whites. And we'll make them choose between blue and white. And knowing that there's only 1 white left, we can take these whites. And we know that they can't build that second column. Okay, so yeah, we're just gonna build our column and end the game. I think I'm gonna start with the row 2 black though, because our opponent like could play that in theory, but it's pretty weird for them to play single blacks. So yeah, we'll grab this black from the center so that we have both options for the row 1 black. And we might get a nice bonus row 3 blue here. Yeah, so I'm going to take a black so that they're inclined to take the yellow. Oh, or the white. Cool, and we will collect our row 3 blue. So another game where our opponent was kind of wild and building a lot of large groups. I think something that you need to look out for when you're playing a like defensive style that can create large groups is you do give your opponent the opportunity to like play on row 4. So like my opponent had 3 row 4s filled, and I think some of that was due to me saying like, oh, I'm going to create a large group of blues so that they can't play row 2 blue, and then they just played them on row 4 instead. So pluses and minuses to creating large groupings. Always be aware of where else your opponent can play them. But we've seen 2 games in a row now, being able to work around those situations where our opponent's creating second column threats. And particularly in that game, you saw like when they were creating a second column threat, we were able to make them choose between 2 of those colors. So I think like in round 4 of that game, I left them with the choice between blue and white. So where they couldn't get both. Okay. Okay, so let's go hard on red. And our opponent's going to want black. So yeah, here we can take the 2 black. Okay, and again, so I have 3 plays left. So I can go black row 4, collect either of the row 2s, and then either of the row 1s. So that's what I'm going to go for. I can't take the reds for row 5 because then I lose out on my row 2. It's actually interesting. Now I think I'll take the reds. So the idea here is I don't want to get stuck later in the game like needing row 1 or 2 red and row 5 red in the same round. Okay, so our opponent's super flexible in their top rows. Um, they've got blue and red, white and yellow for row 3. So this is going to be a little bit tricky. Kind of inclined to take row 2 black here. At some point, probably not right away. I think I'll take the singular black for now and put myself in control of black in the next round. Okay, let's just grab red and force them to take a single tile, see what they group. Nothing. Okay. So yeah, knowing that I control black next round, I'm going to be kind of aggro on black here. Oh, nice. So they make a commitment. Okay. This is a little bit tricky. I need to figure out how to get a row 2 while preventing them from getting a row 3. If I take one yellow and they take a blue, I take another yellow. They can't do... Okay, yeah, this should work. So if they take a yellow, which they don't, yeah, I think we just take here. They should take the whites, and then I'll take the last white to leave them with the open row. And these just play out. Okay, so we're not in a great situation. Our opponent is building much better than us. They're going to be up by a fair number of points. So what does that mean from a macro strategy standpoint? That means we are looking for opportunities to give our opponent negatives. And we get an interesting one here, which is to try to force them to take 4 black to complete their row 5. Okay. So now the other thing I'm looking at is actually their row 1. Because now if I take this single red, they're either playing a group of 6 blues on row 1 or a group of 4 blacks on row 1. And I, of course, can play these blues. But they're just going to, yeah, I mean, they're just going to score great points here. Now, I think we should be a bit risky and play these 2 yellows and set up a potential second column threat. If I were way ahead in this game, I wouldn't do this. But because I'm behind, this is like kind of a risk that I need to take. but this game does not look good for us. Okay, so yeah, let's control the last round. I mean, there's like almost no hope here. My opponent can play red and yellow, so we're not, coming up with any magical threats. In fact, I can't play red, so we need to be very careful about that. Let's just finish row 1. We're not gonna make a row 2. And we'll put 4 colors in the middle so we can't get the last pick. I'm not entirely sure where this one went off the rails. I don't really feel like I had great building opportunities. I suppose not getting whites in round 3 was pretty problematic. Okay, so we're going to set up a full color yellow threat. It's very unlikely, but it's plausible. So we're going to have to choose either row 3 red for this column or row 3 yellow for a full color yellow threat. Also worth noting, okay, cool. Our opponent can only end the game with the 2 black. So I could delay the game into round 6. Now they're just going to take 1 black and I'm going to be stuck here. And so I won't be able to realize any of those threats I talked about. So let's just score maximum points for now. And our opponent can't really score elsewhere if I take this 1 black. So let's just take the 1 black. And they have to be mindful of my threats. And now I have to be mindful of their full color white threat. What's actually worth more to me here? Oh, I can set up something nice. If I just take these, I'm guaranteed either my yellow or my red. So he takes the red, which gives... Oh, no. Of course I screwed this up. Okay, yeah, just not a good game. We'll take whatever they give us here. Yeah, so tough one there. One to look at for sure. Feel free to comment if you see what went terribly wrong for me. Other than that bad round 5, I don't know that I wonder if I had something there that I missed, because I forgot I needed 1 yellow and then 3. So I was like, oh, if I group the yellow, I'm fine. But obviously that was not the case. I wish I could go replay that situation easily. Them being able to create the white threat was pretty nice. Yeah, I wonder if I had anything. Let's check the length of the recording. Okay, so we're already at 1:05. So yeah, I'll call it there. Hopefully some good games there. And yeah, thanks for watching. Probably didn't really get to the as much macro strategy discussion as I wanted, but always tough to balance playing and discussing strategy. So hopefully the video is good anyway, and I will see you next time.